Welcome back to the Deep Dive. We're here again, sifting through various sources, articles, research, personal stories to bring you, the core insights.
Hmm.
Today, we want you to think about something pretty profound. Not just stopping a bad habit, but a real, complete internal shift in how you see and interact with everything. Imagine trading in your old way of seeing things, maybe those distorted views, for what the recovery pioneer Chuck C. called a new pair of glasses.
That's a great way to put it. Yeah, our mission today is really to explore step 12, but
Yeah.
not just as, the last thing on the checklist. We're looking at it as the natural result, the
Yeah.
the ultimate outcome of this really deep internal thing called a psychic change.
Mm.
We'll get into how carrying the message, which is central to recovery, isn't some chore you have to do. It just flows naturally from seeing things differently. It's really about understanding how this change inside leads to a life that feels genuinely joyful and purposeful, especially through helping others.
Right. And for this deep dive, we've looked at quite a bit. Chuck C's talks, obviously, but also key texts from AA literature, some really powerful personal stories, and even some psychological takes on how change happens. Our job, like always, is to guide you through it, pull out the most important bits, connect the dots, and give you a full picture, staying impartial about the source's views. This isn't just about quitting something negative. It's about, uncovering a life that's actually full of hope, serenity, real purpose, just by fundamentally shifting how we look at things. And that new pair of glasses idea just captures the whole thing perfectly, doesn't it? Okay, so let's really dig into that central idea. What is this psychic change that step 12 is built on? It definitely sounds like more than just, changing behavior.
Oh, absolutely. It's described as nothing less than a spiritual awakening and a new state of consciousness and being. And interestingly, it's often received as a free gift, not something you wrestle into existence. When we talk psychic change, we're talking about a complete overhaul of your inner world, your perceptions, your thoughts, your emotions, even those subconscious things that, make you react certain ways. It's not just what you do, but how you experience yourself and everything around you, like getting a whole new operating system for life. It's not tweaking habits or just using willpower. It's a fundamental change in personality. And the foundational texts are really clear. All members who succeed in remaining dry sooner or later undergo this. It's portrayed as this journey, right? From the absolute depths of addiction to the heights of genuine, lasting sobriety.
Wow, all members who succeed. That's strong language. It really suggests this isn't optional for real recovery. It's essential. And I know the big book, the main AA text, it makes some pretty amazing promises for people who really work the steps. What are some of those specific guarantees? What do they tell us about this new state?
Yeah, the big book paints a really vivid picture. It promises people will find a new freedom and a new happiness. Think about that, no longer regretting the past, not wanting to just slam the door on it, but understanding it. They'll grasp what serenity really means, know actual peace, maybe for the first time. And crucially, feelings like uselessness and self-pity, they will disappear, gone, replaced by purpose, connection, and maybe the most striking one, self-seeking will slip away. That constant focus on me starts to fade, making room for genuine care for others. These aren't just wishful thoughts. They're described as concrete shifts in how you feel and live. It shows this psychic change really does rewire your whole being. The text also promises things like, we will intuitively know how to handle situations that used to baffle us. And that moment of clarity, we will suddenly realize that God is doing for us what we could not do for ourselves.
And that realization that knowing how to handle things, so that's where Chuck C's metaphor, the new pair of glasses, feels so right, isn't it? He used that image to explain this exact shift. How did he flesh that out?
Oh, it's such a perfect metaphor. He basically said it's like putting on a new pair of glasses that lets you see the world through a brighter, clearer lens. Crust. Think before, in active addiction, your glasses were probably smeared with fear, resentment, self-pity, the constant hunt for the next drink. Your view of everything, yourself, other people, life was warped. With this new vision, it's not just a surface change in attitude, it's a deep shift in perception. Seeing yourself with, say, acceptance instead of shame, seeing others with empathy, not judgment or fear, seeing the world itself as having possibility, not just despair. You're literally seeing reality in a new way, without all those old filters and distortions.
That really connects with the idea from one source, that chart showing the shift from self-suffering and addiction to witnessing our path in recovery. It visualizes that complete change in orientation. It's like you step back and see your life journey with this new clarity. It's not just feeling better, it's actively, consciously engaging with your own story, right?
Exactly. witnessing our path. That suggests moving from being just swept away by suffering, reacting all the time, to actually observing your life, learning from it with kind of clear-headedness and detachment. You're not just stuck in it anymore. You're engaging with it wisely. And that ties right back to the new glasses, gaining a more objective, insightful, and ultimately, well, empowered view of your own experiences, even the tough ones.
So this change, it goes way beyond just not drinking. Bill W., one of AA's co-founders, he even talked about needing emotional sobriety, especially for the oldsters, people sober for years who'd achieved the AA booze cure. What did he mean by that? That distinction seems really important for understanding this psychic change.
Yeah, Bill W.'s point is critical. It shows that real, lasting happiness is more than just staying dry. He saw lots of longtime sober people, oldsters, who still lacked emotional sobriety. Meaning, maybe they weren't drinking, but they were still easily angered or full of self-pity over small things, constantly needing approval, blaming others, struggling in relationships. You know the type. The goal of the steps, he said, is to develop real maturity and balance, which he equated with humility, in our relations with ourselves, with our fellows, and with God. It shows how comprehensive the change is meant to be: emotional, spiritual, relational health, not just stopping the substance. An emotionally sober person doesn't just avoid drink, they handle conflict better, manage disappointment without falling apart, keep their inner balance even when life gets messy. It's about real peace and resilience in everything. That makes so much sense. It's about deeper healing. And another point from the sources, successful recovery means permanently losing the narcissistic element. Otherwise, the program works only temporarily. That points to a really fundamental internal shift, way beyond just being less self-absorbed, doesn't it?
It really does. Losing that narcissistic element permanently is seen as vital. Why? Because without it, the program's effects might just be temporary. Before, that narcissistic element could show up as always needing praise, blaming everyone else when things go wrong, or just being unable to truly listen because your own internal noise, fears, wants, resentments, is just too loud. It's that overwhelming self-focus where your own stuff just eclipses everything else. Real recovery demands moving past that ego-centeredness, growing a capacity for real empathy, real connection. Losing it means you can actually be present for others, feel with them without a hidden agenda, find joy in giving, not just taking. It's a basic rewiring of the self, from what's in it for me to how can I help. And it's fascinating how that internal shift then shows up on the outside. Emma Fox had that powerful idea. Don't force spiritual truth on people. Instead, let your own life and conduct and the peace and joy that radiate from you impress them so much they come running to you. That sounds like a really passive but incredibly powerful way of carrying the message, letting the change itself do the talking.
It's probably the most authentic way and the most sustainable. It's actually a key principle in AA's outreach, summed up as attraction rather than promotion. It suggests the best way to inspire isn't through pushing or arguing, but by being living proof that the program works. When someone genuinely radiates peace, joy, purpose, others notice. They're drawn to it, they see the serenity, the balance, the different priorities, and they get curious. They start asking questions because they see the reality of the new pair of glasses in action. It moves beyond just talking about it to actually showing it.
You mentioned isolation earlier, and yeah, that's one of the most painful parts of addiction described in the sources. That terrible sense of isolation. It says, almost without exception, alcoholics are tortured by loneliness. It's not just being alone, is it? It's this deep feeling of not quite belonging, like being actors on a stage, but you don't know the script, always feeling like an outsider. And that often pushed them towards alcohol.
Oh, that isolation is crushing, yeah. It's described as this mysterious barrier they feel but can't get past or even understand. Imagine feeling like there's an invisible wall between you and everyone else, even people you care about. That's why they feel like actors who miss rehearsal, they can't be real, can't connect. Alcohol then becomes this fake key, right? It lets them pretend, lets them act extemporaneously, gives a brief illusion of belonging, but then it wears off, and the loneliness is even worse, more terrified. It's this awful cycle, seeking connection through something that ultimately isolates you even more. A real paradox.
So how does the program start to break down that wall? Step 5, where you confide our defects to another human being, is pointed to as crucial for getting rid of that terrible sense of isolation. The sources say the joy and relief after doing that are beyond description, leading to freedom from the bondage of self. That sounds like a massive turning point.
It's absolutely pivotal, almost like spiritual alchemy. Step 5 breaks the power of secrecy and shame that fuels the isolation. Addiction loves the dark, right? So bringing your deepest fears, your flaws, your mistakes out into the open, being truly seen and accepted by another person you trust. lifts this huge weight. The act itself, that radical vulnerability, which sounds terrifying beforehand, results in this incredible joy and relief beyond description. You feel this immediate freedom from being trapped inside yourself. It's often the very first taste of real intimacy, which is the direct cure for that deep loneliness.
And that feeds into the whole idea of building real intimacy. The materials suggest intimacy happens in any relationship where we are willing to let ourselves be seen and known. Recovery helps that happen. It allows your inner and outer lives to be in balance, creates excitement about the possibilities for a relationship. Some named Shirley even said it creates this dynamic, ceaseless flow of life between people.
Yeah, what's interesting is how recovery broadens the definition of intimacy. It's not just romantic or sexual. It's about that willingness to share your innermost self, being open, vulnerable with others, and also with a higher power. When your inside matches your outside, you're living authentically, acting on your values, not hiding, then this dynamic, ceaseless flow of life becomes possible. You start building self-worth through healthy connections, both with that higher power and with other people in recovery. You find yourself part of a real community, which completely replaces the solitary cell of addiction.
Humility and faith come up again and again as cornerstones here. Humility especially gets reframed. It's not about being put down, but a clear recognition of what and who we really are, followed by a sincere attempt to become what we could be. It's not being bludgeoned into humility, but voluntary reaching for it, wanting it. And that's called a great turning point. That's a really positive take on humility.
That redefinition is so important. It shifts humility from something negative, like forced submission, to something profoundly positive. Self-awareness plus aspiration. True humility isn't groveling. It's honestly seeing your strengths and your weaknesses, owning your part in things, and then consciously choosing to grow. When you actively seek it, instead of being forced into it by hitting bottom, it shows a deep internal shift, a genuine desire for self-improvement, a realistic view of yourself in the world. That kind of chosen humility is essential for the deeper work, for really using those new glasses.
And it seems like that chosen humility prepares the ground for faith, which, for a lot of people in recovery, can be a big hurdle. The sources say true humility and an open mind can lead us to faith. Even if someone lost faith or never had it, sticking with the program can help faith get resurrected. At first, maybe AA itself becomes your higher power, and then it can grow from there.
Exactly. And that gradual, flexible approach to faith makes the program work for anyone, no matter their background, religious or not. It acknowledges that people come in from all different places spiritually. The program offers this practical path where initially the group itself, its collective strength, wisdom, support, can act as a stand-in, a tangible higher power. Accepting that, along with humility and just keeping an open mind, allows a personal spiritual experience to happen over time. It often does broaden and deepen into something more traditionally spiritual as they go through the steps. It's definitely a journey, and the destination is very personal.
There's often that worry, though, that accepting dependence, especially on a higher power, will turn people into doormats, like they lose their agency. But the sources argue the exact opposite. Accepting dependence frees them from the toadying of the guilt-ridden drinker and gives them freedom to be themselves. It's called freedom through acceptance. How does that paradox actually work?
Well, it's a powerful paradox, isn't it?
Oh,
Think
yeah.
about it. When someone's drinking, they're often controlled by the addiction. They're constantly manipulating, appeasing, hiding. Their so-called self-reliance was actually slavery to their ego and the disease. So giving up that illusion of control, depending on a power greater than themselves, whether that's God, the group, the principles, paradoxically gives them real freedom. They're freed from the ego's demands, freed from the compulsion to drink. This allows them to act authentically, with integrity, not driven by fear or guilt. It's admitting self-reliance failed, and finding that help from a spiritual source provides a solid new foundation for being genuinely themselves, maybe for the first time ever.
And the journey continues with making amends. Step 8, making a list of all persons we had harmed and became willing to make amends, is called the beginning of the end of isolation. It requires reflection, getting the right attitude before you even do anything. It sounds very deliberate, very thoughtful.
Step 8 is definitely a shift from inner work to starting to repair external relationships. And that preparation phase, just making the list, cultivating the willingness, is crucial. It gives you time to really think about the harms, see the impact on others, and get genuinely ready for the tough but necessary work of reconciliation. It's a conscious choice to stop the pattern of harm, to take responsibility. And just making that choice starts to ease the isolation because you're choosing connection over staying separate. The goal isn't even getting forgiveness from them yet. It's finding freedom for yourself through honesty.
What's really striking, and maybe easy to miss, is the focus on making amends to ourselves. The text actually says, our recovery is the living amends we make to ourselves. Healing the harm done to self-esteem, body, relationships. That feels like a really profound act of self-care, recognizing you were also harmed by your own addiction.
Oh, that's incredibly important. It acknowledges that often the person most harmed by addiction is the addict themselves. All those years of self-neglect, physical damage, emotional pain, crushed self-worth, those are real harms. So by getting sober, working the program, rebuilding a life with integrity, you are actively repairing the damage to your own well-being. It's fundamental self-care, self-compassion, self-forgiveness. It kind of has to come first, or at least alongside making amends to others. It's choosing to value yourself, nurture the person you're becoming, live like you deserve this new life, which is, again, seeing yourself through those new compassionate glasses.
And it looks like forgiveness is a two-way street here. To become willing to make amends, you often have to forgive any harms I believe they've done to me. So this dual process, forgiving and seeking to make right your own wrongs, seems essential for healing and connection.
Exactly right. The sources hammer home that holding on to resentments, justified or not, is poison to sobriety. Resentment is called the #1 offender, the thing that drives people back to drink. So choosing to let go of bitterness, forgiving others, actually frees you from that emotional jag, the anger, jealousy, self-pity, hurt, pride that leads right back to old patterns. Doing both, taking responsibility for your harms and releasing others, is this complete liberation. It clears the decks for real connection, real emotional and spiritual freedom.
Okay, let's shift gears a bit and look at how this psychic change actually happens, because it's clearly not just willpower, right? And we know willpower often isn't enough. The sources state plainly that alcoholics, quote, couldn't lick alcohol with our own remaining resources. The program teaches there's only so much we can change and control by ourselves, that we aren't totally in charge of when or how change happens, inside or out. That's humbling.
It is humbling, and it's a complete break from that stubborn self-reliance that often defined the struggle before. Admitting powerlessness in step 1 really sets the stage for this. It's recognizing that your own resources, willpower, smarts, determination, just aren't enough against something described as cunning, baffling, and powerful. That admission cracks the door open to needing help from a higher power. It's accepting that some changes are just beyond you and require help from outside yourself. It's surrendering the losing battle and opening up to a different kind of power.
Which leads right into step 7, described as a way of opening yourself to change, asking for help, and letting a greater power do the rest. It's about working in partnership with our higher power, doing your part sincerely, then letting go of the outcome. That sounds like a tricky balance, effort and surrender.
It is a delicate balance, yeah. What's key in step 7 is that it's active but not controlling. You're intentionally opening yourself to change, consciously asking for help to remove character defects. The partnership idea is vital. You do your part, identify the defects, become willing to let them go, and then you trust that a greater power handles the rest, especially those deep inner shifts willpower can't touch. It's about taking the spiritual action, making the request, and then releasing your ego's need to control how or when it happens. That humility, that letting go, allows change where sheer self-will always failed. It lets you see solutions through those new glasses.
And this all seems to build towards that core message from the big book. We will suddenly realize that God is doing for us what we could not do for ourselves. That sounds like a defining moment, a shift in perspective.
That realization is really the payoff from the earlier steps, especially 2, 3, and 7. It's the moment you experience something outside yourself, achieving what all your own striving couldn't. Now, it might not be a lightning bolt for everyone. It can be this slow, quiet realization dawning over time. But it's always profound. That sudden understanding really cements the new perspective. You move from desperate, failed self-reliance to trusting a higher power. Practically, it means when you face trouble or temptation, instead of fighting it the old way, you remember to ask for help and trust the answer will come. That leads to unexpected peace and effective action.
But this new way of seeing, these new glasses, they don't just appear and stay clean forever, right? It needs daily work. The sources stress a daily commitment to continuing observation and reflection, noticing when you're off balance or hurting people. Without that daily reflection, often done through step 10, there's a real risk of emotional turmoil, dragging you back to old ways. It's about protecting that peace.
Exactly. Step 10 is like the ongoing maintenance plan. It keeps you from getting spiritually complacent or emotionally sideways. It reminds you recovery is a continuous journey, not a one and done deal. Without that constant self awareness, that deliberate daily observation and reflection, all the old junk, the emotional turmoil like resentments, worries, fears, jealousies, it can creep back in and threaten everything, basically fogging up those new glasses again. This vigilance, this daily check in, isn't seen as a chore, but a small price to pay for peace of mind. It lets you nip problems in the bud before they grow huge. It keeps the lenses clear.
And Chuck C. specifically pushed journaling as one of the most critical daily habits for this. He saw it as a constructive outlet for processing emotions, helping reveal patterns, identify triggers. Sounds like a really practical tool.
Journaling is like making that daily observation concrete. Say you're feeling really resentful or anxious. Instead of stewing in it or snapping at someone, you write it down. Felt really angry at my boss today because. Then you can look at it. Okay, is this familiar? What's underneath this? What fear or insecurity is driving it? It turns that internal mess into something visible you can work with. You spot triggers, process feelings safely, identify those character defects. It builds amazing self-awareness. Letting you deal with things proactively before they blow up really helps maintain that stable new consciousness.
Step 11 then brings in prayer and meditation, calling them vital sustenance like air or food. Saying conscious contact with God can be as simple as conscious contact with another person, smiling, listening, forgiving. And prayer, the sources suggest, can be seen as setting of intention, which helps guard against ego-driven wants.
Yeah, it really demystifies these practices, makes them doable for anyone. Equating conscious contact with God to how you connect with another person, really listening, being present, forgiving it grounds spirituality in everyday life. It's not about fancy rituals, it's about moment-to-moment awareness and connection. And framing prayer as setting of intention shifts it away from just asking for stuff, like a cosmic shopping list, give me a promotion. Instead, it's about aligning yourself with a higher purpose. Help me be useful today. Grant me patience. That stops the ego from running the show and fosters a more mature spiritual connection, keeping that new perspective clear and grounded.
It's also interesting how even simple menial chores, done faithfully, are said to have unexpectedly good effects and give some muscle to our sobriety. It connects the everyday stuff to spiritual growth.
That's a really practical, down-to-earth part of building the new consciousness. It shows that discipline and consistency, even in small things like doing the dishes, making the bed, showing up on time, they build integrity. They build self-respect. When you consistently do these simple menial chores, you're practicing reliability, mindfulness, follow-through. These small victories add up. They reinforce the idea that steady, diligent effort, even when it feels boring, is the foundation for bigger changes and spiritual growth. It's about practicing these principles in all your affairs, big or small. That consistent effort strengthens your spiritual muscles for when the heavier lifting is needed.
Let's touch on the depth of this change too, because it's not just mental or spiritual, there's biology involved.
Yeah.
We mentioned addiction changing brain chemistry, brain circuitry changes. The sources say the impaired organ of decision-making needs to initiate its own healing process, maybe even become normal for the very first time. So there's a real physical aspect to this psychic shift.
Absolutely. And the science really backs up how deep this change goes. Addiction isn't just a willpower issue. It physically alters brain circuits, especially areas controlling impulse, judgment, decision-making, like the prefrontal cortex. Repeated substance use hijacks the brain's reward system, changes dopamine pathways. But, and this is the hopeful part, neuroscience shows that repeated positive actions, new ways of thinking, new habits, spiritual practices, all the things the steps encourage, can actually rewire those pathways. That's neuroplasticity. The brain's impaired organ can heal itself by forming new, healthier connections. This physical recovery supports the psychic shift, making the change real even at a biological level. It allows the brain to potentially revert to normal or become normal for the very first time, giving a stable physical base for that new worldview.
And this really is more than just surface-level control, just white-knuckling it. That desire for alcohol, the insatiable thirst it deceives us, makes us think it offers something good. The goal isn't just to fight the urge, but to make it small and irrelevant, to deeply understand that alcohol is poison and offers no true pleasure. It's a total reevaluation of alcohol's worth.
That's a crucial psychological and spiritual reset. For someone deep in it, that desire isn't just a passing thought. It's this powerful, consuming, insatiable thirst. It lies, telling you relief or fun is in the bottle. The program's aim isn't a lifelong, exhausting fight against that craving. It's to dismantle the belief system fueling it. Through the steps, especially the honesty and spiritual work, you reach this deep gut-level knowing of alcohol's true nature. It's poison. You come to see the pleasure was always temporary, always followed by more pain. The goal is to shrink that desire down, make it small and irrelevant, by fundamentally recognizing its destructive reality. When you truly, deeply believe something is poison, wanting to drink it just fades. Making space for that clear vision through the new glasses.
But the sources are realistic too. They acknowledge this doesn't happen overnight. Honesty has not come easily or quickly. It's much more of a slow emergence from the dark. It's ongoing, right? But by seeing your own part in the pain, you get the chance to stop repeating the same mistakes. It's not a magic fix, but continuous learning.
Yeah, that's a really important dose of reality and compassion. That slow emergence from the dark acknowledges that psychic change usually isn't instant or straightforward. There are breakthroughs, sure, but also times of reflection, maybe even steps back. It emphasizes that recovery is this ongoing process of self-discovery, finding the courage to face how you contributed to your own problems. That self-awareness, while tough, is incredibly empowering. It gives you the power to break old patterns and keep growing. It's about patiently adjusting those new glasses, cleaning them daily, and learning to trust the clearer view.
Okay, so let's talk about carrying the message. Because the way it's framed here isn't like a duty or a burden. It's presented as the natural, joyful result of finding peace and purpose. It's called the heart of our third legacy of service. And it's not just about helping others. There's this self-preservation angle. We must carry AA's message, otherwise we ourselves may fall into decay. So it's tied directly to staying sober yourself.
That reveals something profound and maybe unexpected about service and recovery. It's not just a nice thing to do, an extra volunteer activity. It's presented as absolutely essential for your own continued sobriety and spiritual health. Giving back, sharing what you found, is explicitly linked to avoiding your own decay, getting spiritually stagnant, falling back into old ways. It says the joy and clarity you get from those new glasses aren't meant to be kept to yourself. They actually grow stronger, get maintained, when you actively help others who are still struggling. So service becomes, in a way, selfish. In the best sense, it reinforces your own recovery, deepens your gratitude and sense of purpose.
And Emmett Fox's idea fits perfectly here again. Never try to force spiritual truth. Instead, live it so authentically, with such peace and joy that radiate from you, that people are drawn to it naturally. They come running to you.
Yeah.
It really emphasizes that genuine attraction over any kind of hard sell. Feels much more real.
It really is the core of AA's approach to outreach, attraction rather than promotion. Lead by example. Show the real, undeniable benefits of recovery through how you live your life. When someone genuinely lives with peace, serenity, joy, when they truly see the world through that clear new lens, it's way more convincing than any argument or lecture. Others see the change, the resilience, the happiness, and they get curious. They seek help because they want what they see, not because they were pressured. It's organic, authentic, and incredibly powerful. Your life becomes the message.
Which leads to that common saying in recovery, that deep truth. To give it away is to keep it. The energy you get from seeing others on a successful path, of sharing with them the joys of the journey, gives to my life a new meaning. Witnessing someone else start to transform is described as just a priceless reward.
To give it away is to keep it. Yeah, that perfectly captures the cycle. The spiritual principles, the psychic change, they aren't static things you achieve and put on a shelf. They're dynamic. They get stronger when you share them. Helping someone else actually solidifies your own sobriety. It constantly reminds you where you came from, how precious this new life is, and the energy, the inspiration you get from seeing others get well, sharing the ups and downs of the journey. It gives your life this incredible new meaning that goes way beyond just your own concerns. That priceless reward turns service from a task into this deep, ongoing source of joy and continued spiritual growth for yourself. You're seeing the world through new glasses and then helping others find theirs.
And this whole shift leads to a life with real purpose and balance, far beyond just not drinking. The Big Book says, life will take on new meaning. And that December 17th reflection mentions self-examination, serenity, peace, and contentment as the direct payoff for ongoing recovery.
These promises really show how holistic the psychic change is. The new meaning isn't just about avoiding alcohol. It's finding that deeper purpose, connection, fulfillment that fills the spiritual emptiness often behind addiction. Serenity, peace, contentment, they stop being these rare, fleeting things and become part of your daily reality. But they're earned, right? Through consistent self-examination, living honestly, practicing the principles daily, it fundamentally changes your inner world, making real satisfaction possible.
And this new meaning also moves you past that self-seeking, that narcissism we talked about. The sources say that feeling of uselessness and self-pity will disappear. We will lose interest in selfish things and gain interest in our fellows. Self-seeking will slip away.
Mhm.
It doesn't just create room for service, it creates a genuine desire for it.
Exactly. It directly tackles the self-centeredness that's so typical of active addiction. The disappearance of uselessness and self-pity, the fading of self-seeking, these aren't forced. They happen naturally as a result of the psychic shift. As you start seeing yourself and the world more clearly, your own problems just lose their overwhelming grip. That freed up emotional and spiritual energy naturally flows outwards into genuine interest in others, a real desire to contribute, not just take. That enables true connection and service, which then feeds back into the positive cycle, bringing even more joy.
And finally, this transformation doesn't mean you retreat from the world. Quite the opposite. There's that great line, "The surrender of my life to God did not mean retirement from life. It meant much greater usefulness in all departments of life and developed a clarity, insight, and activity of mind with which I had never before been gifted." It describes someone who's active, engaged, effective, not stuck in inner turmoil or indecision anymore.
That's such a crucial point. It busts the myth that spiritual surrender means checking out. No, it actually unlocks this new capacity for greater usefulness, develops amazing clarity, insight, and activity of mind. The inner chaos, the constant mental debates, the paralysis of indecision that often goes with addiction that gives way to this vibrant, purposeful way of engaging with life, it shows those new glasses aren't just for quiet moments. They let you participate more effectively, more joyfully, more productively in everything: work, family, community. You become a more valuable, contributing person.
Which brings us to how you sustain this transformation.
Sure.
How do you keep practicing these principles in everything you do? The sources stress that spiritual acquisition soon falls into disinterest and disuse unless followed by a steady growth. So it's not like you arrive and you're done. It's an ongoing dynamic unfolding.
Precisely. It highlights that this psychic change, even though it's profound, isn't a fixed state. It's alive. Like keeping physically fit, spiritual fitness needs ongoing exercise, attention, nurturing. Without that steady growth, without deliberately applying these recovery principles day in, day out, even the deepest spiritual experiences can fade. The clarity of those new glasses can get smudged again. It really underscores the need for continuous effort and commitment to maintain and even deepen the change you've experienced. Got to keep that perspective sharp and vibrant, constant spiritual upkeep, you might say.
And alongside that, daily vigilance will turn out to be a small price to pay for my peace of mind. This is about tackling that inevitable emotional turmoil, new resentments, worries, jealousies, and fears that can push you back. It's about proactively guarding that inner peace, right?
Daily vigilance is really the practical side of sustained growth, especially through that ongoing self-inventory, step 10. It's like a continuous internal radar check. Are resentments creeping in? Fears? Self-pity. You have to be willing to spot this emotional turmoil early and deal with it before it takes root and messes things up. The sources suggest this consistent self-awareness, this willingness to quickly own your stuff, is a small but vital investment in keeping that hard-won peace. It's proactive maintenance to keep the path clear and those new glasses focused.
The serenity prayer comes up as a really powerful practical tool here, helping you sort out those situations I can work on and those I must turn over. It gives you serenity through acceptance and courage for action. Sounds like a simple, but really effective guide for navigating life with this new perspective.
Oh, the Serenity Prayer is like a pocket compass for living these principles daily. It gives you a framework for thinking clearly and managing emotions. Can I change this, or do I need to accept it? It helps you find serenity by accepting what you truly can't change: the past, other people's choices, certain circumstances. And it gives you the courage to change what you can change, mostly your own attitudes and actions. This stops you from banging your head against brick walls, lets you focus your energy wisely, and helps you handle life's ups and downs with more grace and resilience. You're operating with a new level of wisdom.
And life keeps happening, doesn't it? The sources admit that while we can handle the big lumps, sometimes the greater challenge is in the lesser and more continuous problems of life, the daily grind. And the answer they suggest: still more spiritual development. It acknowledges recovery isn't just for crises, but for navigating everyday life too.
That's such a realistic point. Big crises might demand big spiritual reserves, sure. But it's often the lesser and more continuous problems, the small annoyances, minor setbacks, nagging worries that really wear you down. These everyday things can erode your peace just as much as a big trauma if you don't handle them well. So the solution, still more spiritual development, just reinforces that continuous growth is key. It means applying acceptance, humility, faith to the small stuff, the daily interactions, the internal chatter, not just saving it for the emergencies.
This also involves constantly reassessing our basic instincts. Our old attitudes toward our instincts need to undergo drastic revisions. Things like wanting security, money, status, romance, family, they all need to be tempered and redirected. The warning is clear. Putting those instincts first always leads to disillusionment.
That's a huge shift from being self-centered to being more spiritually centered. It recognizes that our natural instincts, while necessary, get all twisted up in addiction. They become demands, obsessions for external things. The program says these desires need to be tempered and redirected. You put spiritual principles like honesty, kindness, service ahead of just getting what you want right now or feeding your ego. If you chase happiness only through stuff, status, or even relationships, the sources warn you're setting yourself up for disillusionment, because those external things can never give lasting inner peace. The new perspective helps you see that true contentment comes from inside, aligned with principles, not from chasing fleeting external rewards.
And the ultimate test, it seems, is practicing all this when you're facing monotony, pain, and calamity. Turning those hard times to good use by practice of steps. Promise is that the joy of living is still possible, even in the middle of hardship. It's not about avoiding pain, but changing how you experience it.
That's truly where the new pair of glasses shows its real worth. Finding joy of living, not because life is easy, but even when it's hard, by actively using the steps and recovery principles right in the thick of it. Monotony, pain, calamity, the stuff we all dread, they become chances for spiritual practice and growth, instead of just triggers for relapse or despair. It shows a complete shift in how you relate to difficulty. Through this psychic change, you gain the inner strength and spiritual tools to navigate anything with some measure of peace and purpose, turning suffering itself into a path for deeper understanding.
So, wrapping it all up, it boils down to understanding is key to right attitudes, right action key to good living. This huge change touches every part of life: relationships, money, self-image, leading to instincts restored to true purpose. That really paints the picture of living life fully through those clear new glasses with everything inside aligned.
It absolutely does. It perfectly sums up the whole transformation of Step 12. The understanding you gain through reflection and spiritual connection leads to right attitudes based on humility, acceptance, gratitude. Those attitudes then drive right action, which results in good living, a life with serenity, meaning real connection. It's all interconnected. Every part of your life, home, work, finances, sense of self, gets viewed and lived through this clear new lens. Your instincts, instead of causing destruction, are restored to true purpose. They start serving life, not undermining it. It's a beautiful picture of what this psychic change makes possible. Hashtag tag 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 outro.
Wow. What an incredible exploration today. We've traced the path from that deep isolation and self-suffering addiction to the hard work of the steps, accepting help from a higher power, to this really profound personal psychic change. This transformation, captured so well by that new pair of glasses idea, it just naturally leads to a life filled with the genuine joy of living and the spontaneous wish to carry the message, not just by talking, but by being the change.
It really shows the program's power to create this renewed self, doesn't it? Someone who's connected, has purpose. And it's not a final destination, is it? It's this ongoing journey of continuous effectiveness and permanent unity, where that idea of giving it away is to keep it becomes just how you live, an evolving state of wholeness, this new awareness that changes your whole relationship with the world, making life feel truly rich.
So as you move through your day, here's something to think about. How might your view of things, daily hassles, your relationships, even just quiet moments, how might that shift if you consciously chose to look through this lens, this new pair of glasses? What might open up if you trusted in that ongoing growth, in service, to light up your path? And maybe think bigger. What could the world look like if more people experienced this kind of deep psychic change and shared that resulting peace and purpose with everyone around them?